Good morning, Heat Nation, folks, folkettes, and everything in between and beyond. My name is Roy, the host of Mahapanies. As far as I'm concerned, the only host in the history of the internet who fully and wholeheartedly admits that he has no idea what he is talking about. And today is another unscripted version of this PennyQuickies, but I'm not going to over-focus today. Actually, I'm not going to focus at all in the game against Orlando because I don't think that that's the main topic of conversation right now. The main topic of conversation right now, of course, is Jimmy Butler, right? As far as to get it out of the way, in terms of the Heat playing at Magic after the Magic successfully beat the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics, by the way, with two losses in a row, doesn't say anything about us. And we're obviously playing the team that managed to humiliate us the most this season twice, in the opening night and then in the last game. And there is a little bit of a timeline of events in terms of what happened, right? So Shams releases a news story that is not meant to be, or that is not supposed to be a news story, in the sense that Shams knows exactly what he's doing. Right? He's a professional. He's been in this. He's been doing this for a very long time, and I'm glad that it's him and not Wash. But as far as the type of news and the way that it was conveyed, when it was conveyed, it was right before the game against the Pistons, and there was a feeling there that obviously that's not something that Jimmy Butler wanted to get out of the Miami Heat, but that's something that Jimmy Butler's camp, one way or another, as much as they deny it, they wanted it out. Because otherwise, there's no such thing as no one saying nothing and they coming out, not someone like Shams, right? And coming out and not vetting the story. So they said something. That game against the Pistons, Jimmy Butler showed his absolute best career game with the Miami Heat in the regular season. His second best career game in the NBA in the regular season. With the Miami Heat, his third best career game, including the playoffs. And we lost the game against the Pistons. We lost the game against the Pistons because of terrible defense down the stretch, allowing Tim Hardaway Jr. to score 3 consecutive three-pointers in transition. Terrible miscommunication, something that has been an issue throughout some stretches of some quarters when the Miami Heat plays this and last season, even the season before that, I would say, but with slightly different outcomes. When it comes to what happened after that, then we have the game against the Thunder that Jimmy Butler twists his ankle, but he's out because of a stomach flu. And then he's out again on Monday against the Nets. He's out against right now is probable is doubtful return or questionable return to competition conditioning, which is just silly because there wasn't a bigger break between the time that he got injured and now, and the time that he was healthy waiting for the Pistons game. With the exception, of course, with you're sick, you don't do any physical activities, but return to competition conditioning with Jimmy Butler is just a laughable excuse. And then the reports come out, 5 Reasons Sports gets on the microphone and says, look, as far as Heat sources go, because the entire media is just taking the perspective of the national media and not the perspective of the Miami Heat. Even if they are taking into account whatever comes from the Butler camp, they're not taking into account whatever is coming from the Miami Heat's front office. And when the Miami Heat front office said then, it's saying now. And so what did he say then? There are no trade proposals right now, but not officially. That's the thing. Those are the sources within the Miami Heat saying it's not official. There's nothing. We're not. Jimmy Butler has not requested a trade. We are not looking at proposals because nobody's offering anything. We are free to trading him just like we are free to trade, to trading absolutely everybody with the exception of a couple of untouchables. Well, Jimmy Butler is obviously not an untouchable anymore. So that's the part that was new. But that was new in the offseason. It's not new now, right? What's new is that this story came out, and then all of a sudden, yeah, Jimmy Butler is open for a trade. Miami Heat is open for a trade. And the Miami Heat didn't immediately deny it, and the Miami Heat actually didn't deny it in general, right? They just kind of said, yeah, no, right now there's just business as usual. We're going by, but they didn't say categorically, Jimmy Butler has not requested a trade. We are not asking we're not listening to other teams. There's no other team talking to us right now, so how can we be listening? They didn't do that. Okay. We lost, if I'm not mistaken, in this stretch since the news. I think it wasn't before the Pistons. It was before the I'm not sure. I know that we lost. I think we are 1-2 or 1-3 since the Butler thing happened. Including a game that Butler gave his all and the team just came up short, meaning that's a game that you say, okay, if I have just one more supporting cast that can actually step up and finish it with me, and it doesn't just have to be me, maybe that kind of changes his mood a little bit. That seemed to be a little bit of a souring component. Along with the fact that Miami Heat, this is reported in Miami Herald by Barry Jackson, along with the fact that Miami Heat didn't categorically deny that they were actually interested in trading Jimmy Butler. The fact that the front office didn't surround Jimmy Butler with the correct talent. We already knew that. And eventually also connected with the fact that they didn't extend his contract, right? And Pat Riley has been saying some things that, is basically saying, I'm not really happy with Butler the way that he is right now. He needs to show more. And the truth is that this guy almost single-handedly, because obviously other players showed up, but a lot of them either got injured or were not playing up to par. And I'm talking about Tyler Hero, I'm talking about Bam Adebayo, talking about, these two main, right, supporting, let's say, of the star. There's two main other star chasers, let's say, or stars information. I see that in Tyler, at least. That definitely deserves to be an all-star this year, but still hasn't changed one thing. He cannot step up when we need him the most because he and Bam were sorely missed in that fourth quarter against Orlando. But still, a star information, right? They couldn't help him get a ring, but he brought us to the finals twice. He brought us to the ECF 3 times. And we almost won those 3 times, right? It was literally by one Butler missed shot. And then Butler gets blamed for that missed shot, let's just say, right? So the last thing that which came yesterday, was that, specifically on Christmas, because that's how reporters like the Miami Heat so much. The Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, wants to be traded before February 6th. That's his preference. Now, wants to be traded, and that's his preference. He prefers to be traded before January 6th. Now, face value, we could take a look at that and say what this is actually saying, because the most ridiculous tradition in sports is to take that Jimmy Butler wants to be traded before February 6th and turn it into Jimmy Butler requested a trade from the Heat, which are two completely different things. One of them, by the way, is punishable by fine since Damian Lillard, right? That's what happened. So, right now, Jimmy Butler cannot publicly ask for a trade. So that didn't happen. It didn't ask for a trade in terms of what a source is, because that would also be punishable by a fine. He could say, however, that he is unhappy. So when we look at the thing face value, we could say, if he is to be traded, he prefers to be traded to a contending team now because of his age. Does that make sense from the player's perspective? Absolutely. However, of course, a lot of Miami Heat fans are heartbroken because they believe that Jimmy Butler should want to stay. And the truth is that a lot of people are also realistic in saying this front office screwed it up by making it an environment that Jimmy Butler does not want to stay. However, what we have seen is that Jimmy Butler in the Barry Jackson report, and then a couple of other people who spoke with insiders from the 5 Reasons Sports Network, they spoke with insiders from the Miami Heat, and the truth is that the position of the Miami Heat is as follows, right? If you don't know yet, you should know. You should follow 5 on the floor. Although you kind of got to have their Discord, 5 on the floor on Discord. I think it's $3.99 a month for you to get all the content from there. Because this way you'd see them when they actually record the videos. There's another video coming up and I want to watch them on YouTube. But if you don't subscribe to their channel, you're not going to see the latest things that they say. But basically, they kind of came up and spoke with someone and said, yeah, it's true. Jimmy right now is not happy with the front office because of certain things that happen. And he does want to be, he does prefer to be traded. He doesn't want to make a big fuss about it because, he doesn't want to create a distraction. He wants to be professional. He doesn't want to be remembered as the people in 5 Reasons Sports also mentioned in there. I mean, as Ethan Skolnick in particular mentioned in his 5 minutes yesterday, he doesn't want to be remembered as a Minnesota Jimmy that tried to force that situation. He doesn't want to create that kind of distraction. So the sentiment is that he's not happy with the front office. The sentiment is not happy with the way that things were handled with him and with the team in general, and that he does want out. And so when we actually go to the insiders and not just the face value, which can be interpreted into, yeah, if he has to be traded, he wants to be traded now, but he doesn't necessarily want to be traded, right? But the truth is that when we actually get to the insiders and we actually hear, okay, the insiders are saying that the Miami Heat is in this position. They don't need to trade Jimmy Butler now. Number one, because there aren't any offers. Number two, because if they don't like the offer, Jimmy Butler is not a free agent. He doesn't have the choice. He doesn't have to be. Miami Heat does not have to do it. Number three, it hasn't created a distraction or made the situation unattainable or unfathomable. Unattainable is not the right words, but he didn't make the situation that is going to be impossible to work with him going forward. And so that's not what's happening right now with the Miami Heat. So the Miami Heat feels no obligation, and they do understand that they could very easily take it into the offseason. And that's something that they believe Jimmy Butler is also comfortable with, given the state of the situation and given the respect that he has for the organization. And that is basically what Ethan Skolnick said, that there are 3 ways. This is what there is what Jimmy Butler wants, there's what Miami Heat wants, and there's what other teams want. But at the end of the day, what really matters is what Miami Heat wants. And the Miami Heat doesn't want to be stuck with, for example, a Wiggins contract, that a player that they believe doesn't even fit the Heat organization, the Heat culture, which I completely agree. Regardless of how Kuminga would be amazing, it wouldn't make up for losing Butler. Butler's level of play in the playoffs is top 10, top 5 in the NBA, So look, here is what I think. Because Raf and 4 asked me for my opinion. I recorded a video last night, but the quality is so bad, I'm not going to post this. I'm going to post this one, which is basically saying the same things, even though they're scripted. Somehow, miraculously, they came out in the right order. I'm going to listen to it and see that I said some BS, but let's see. Look. To me, Jimmy Butler doesn't want to stay with the Miami Heat. This is the first time that I'm saying this because I honestly didn't want to believe in that. I really rooted for this being Jimmy Butler's comeback regular season, but I understand that he's not obligated to stay if the team does not show the commitment to actually getting the right players around him when it still has the energy, when he still has the impact, when it still makes the impact that he has been making, to get him the ring that he so much dreamed. On the flip side, Jimmy Butler wouldn't have gotten to the final without Miami Heat, period. Just period. He wouldn't have gotten to the final without Miami Heat, period. So obviously, my son is crying right now. I'm going to have to go check on him soon. But so obviously, I know his mom is with him. Don't think that I left him alone. Obviously, this is a situation in which Jimmy Butler is not going to, in my opinion, give anything to the team. I'm not saying anything because I don't think that Jimmy Butler is like that. But if he's already missing time because of a stomach flu that lasts a week, seemed really unhappy after the Pistons loss, didn't seem engaged before leaving the game against the Thunder. Don't hear about him other than he's out with a stomach flu and now returned to competition conditioning. The stories start coming out, which in my opinion is a way from Butler's camp to kind of instigate. Let's see, okay, now Butler himself is open. Let's see what you guys have. Please start talking to the Heat. That's what I think is happening here. That's my opinion. And in that sense, I think that Ethan Skolnick is, and they're trying to kind of, no, we know what is happening. And what is happening is that Jimmy Butler did not want to be traded because the Miami Heat organization is not saying that he wants to be traded. Yeah, the problem in this case is that they may have sources within the Heat organization, and they may get the Heat organization's perspective in the sense that they don't need to trade Jimmy Butler unless Jimmy Butler makes things ugly. But did you want a player that doesn't want to be on your team, regardless of how great that player is? Because I'm never going to lose respect for Jimmy Butler. I don't care what anybody says. This is not LeBron. It's more akin to Wade's situation, but Jimmy Butler has a lot more to give than Wade had when that situation happened. I really think that Wade's tank was almost empty, and Jimmy Butler's is just not, especially when he gets into that gear. And I know he can do that during the offseason, which is when we need him. But if he doesn't want to be here, he's not going to do it. Unless we somehow get into the offseason and he sees that we are engaged, he's not going to sabotage us. That's for sure. He's not going to sabotage himself. But I don't see that happening. I don't see us being, I see us being a first-round exit, if at all, if not a play-in exit, because just not making a play-in seems almost impossible. I see us as a first-round or play-in exit. I mean, I see that this, again, this was a year for the rookies. So if this is a year for the rookies, it's certainly not a year for Jimmy Butler. It can't be both. Unless the rookies are playing at a Wembanyama, Polo Banchero level right off the bat. Which is obviously not happening. And also we have the sophomore walls. It's happening with Jaime Jaquez. We don't know where Jovic belongs because Spo doesn't know where Jovic belongs. Because Spo hasn't been great this season, and he hasn't been great the past seasons. But he still manages to make this a competitive team, which we must give Spo credit for that. But at the same time, it doesn't get us out of mediocrity. And I think that we have the tools to be out of mediocrity. It's, again, right, if you don't have the grit or the will or the power, that's on the coach more than on the players, I think, right? On the whole, not being able to motivate a player to do something, it's on the coach a lot more than it's on the player. I mean, unless every single player has tremendous personal reasons to be mad and they're not going to play, that's a different reason. But if not, that's not the case. If the climate is not good, if things are souring in the locker room with Spo, that's a big issue. But if the main issue is Butler, we have a problem. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. My expectation is that we somehow are able to get this into the offseason and to get either Jimmy to opt in or to re-sign him with a compromise, as there was a poll from the 5 Reasons Sports on Twitter. But I don't know what's going to happen. What I know is I don't want a player that doesn't want to play in my team. So we need to see him play. We need to see how engaged he is, which I can foresee not much. But generally speaking, if he doesn't want to be with us, let's do right by him, just like the Blazers did wrong by Lillard. Let's do right by Butler and get him to a contending team, if possible. But we're not going to, like, Miami Heat is also not going to self-sabotage for the player in the sense that we're not going to just get, Wiggins, Kuminga in a first. It's not going to cut it. And also, we don't want Wiggins unless we know that we can move Wiggins. Fox doesn't want to come here, at least not now. I don't think Sabonis will want to come here either. I don't see a team. That doesn't mean that's not going to happen. I don't see it happening right now. And thus far, at 9:43 a.m., the game before the Magic on December 26th. I hope you guys had a lovely holiday yesterday. The guys that are celebrating new holidays, hope you have happy holidays right now. But yeah, I don't see anything happening. So this is my take on Jimmy Butler. This is what I think. I don't think he's leaving, but I think that if he wants to leave, the best thing to do is to help him get out of there and try to maximize the assets as much as possible, which would mean trading him before February 6th. I think to maximize assets, I think that's what he, or just let him walk and that will free up cap space enough that had us locked in so much throughout this last 5-6 seasons now. And that's another great advantage. So it doesn't need to leave right now. I would actually like to see him stay, but if he doesn't want to play, let's just try. I want the best outcome for the Miami Heat and for him. Of course, for the Miami Heat first, but for him as well. Stay safe, stay dry, stay as happy as possible in this very complicated world of ours. Let's go Heat.